Okay, so the first postulate, again, this should be kind of review, is segment addition postulate. And what this postulate stated is that if you have a segment like this that's kind of broken up into parts, segment AB plus the length of BC will equal the length of the whole thing. That is segment addition postulate. So you can say that segment AB, the length of AB plus the length of BC will equal the length of AC. That is segment addition postulate. Then, definition of congruence, we've seen a couple times before as well. If the length of AB equals BC, then AB is congruent to BC. Or if AB is congruent to BC, then the length of AB is equal to BC. So if the length of two segments is equal, for example, AB equals BC, then AB is congruent to BC, which is what we see. AB is congruent to BC. And that's one of the things that you're supposed to know, like they outline exactly what you need to know for like testing and stuff. It says you need to know the difference between the congruent statement and just like the equal in length. Okay, then the next one that you've seen before is definition of midpoint. Here it says if M is between A and B, if M is the midpoint between A and B, so this is midpoint, then the length of AM equals MB, and that's definition of midpoint. So if you see that situation, the reason is definition of midpoint. Should I zoom in a little bit more? Okay, and then we have properties of congruence. These are similar to what we saw on Tuesday before the hurricane. Reflexive property is when something equals itself. So for example, AB is congruent to itself, AB. Symmetric property is when you have a segment like AB is congruent to CD, then CD is congruent to AB. So I think of it like when something has symmetry, it like reflects itself over there. So that's how I remember that one. And then transitive property was when, okay, if A equals B or congruent to B and B equals C, then A is congruent to C. Wait, I'm using the wrong symbol there, but yeah, congruent. So the example I used for this was like, I don't know, Peyton is the same height as Ludmilla, and then Ludmilla is the same height as Lucas, and so then Peyton and Lucas would be the same height. Okay, and then down here it has a list of properties. These properties we saw Tuesday, like addition property, subtraction property. These were all used with the algebraic proofs, so some of these will come up today as well. Okay, once you're done with that, just flip to the next page. What's that? No, not during the lesson. Okay, so over here, we're working toward the proofs, but we're just going to practice with these statements over here. And these statements are essentially what's in the proofs and vice versa. So for number one, it just gives us the statement. We have to identify either a property, definition, postulate, or theorem. So it says PQ is equal to PQ, therefore they're congruent to each other. Since they're equal, and that means they're congruent, that's definition of congruence. Then for the next one, it says K is in between J and L, like this. JK plus KL equals JL. That is segment addition postulate. Then number 3, EF is congruent to itself. That was reflexive property. We'll abbreviate a little bit. I don't want to abbreviate too much so that way you remember it. But number 4 says RS is equal to TU. Then it says RS plus XY equals TU plus XY. So they're adding the same thing to both sides, and if you add the same thing to both sides, it's still equal. That is addition property of equality. That you can add the same value to both sides and your equation will still be equal. Number 5 is AB equals DE, then DE equals AB. They just like change the order. So that is symmetric property. Number 6, Y is a midpoint of XZ, then XY equals YZ. If Y is the midpoint, then yes, this side would be equal to the other side. That's definition of midpoint. And number 7, FG equals HI, HI equals JK, then FG equals JK. So like they're both equal to HI, so therefore FG would equal JK. That's transitive property. And the next one, it starts off with a statement. AB plus CD equals EF plus CD, then AB equals EF. So to go from here to here, they subtracted CD from both sides. So that would be subtraction property. Number 9, PQ plus RS equals TV and RS equals WX, then PQ plus WX equals TV. So what they did here is, since RS equals WX, they plugged in WX for RS, so that would be substitution. Then number 10, LP equals PN. LP and N are collinear, meaning they're in a straight line. P is a midpoint. That is definition of midpoint. And then number 11, if they're congruent, then UV is equal to UV. That would be definition of congruence. And then number 12, CD plus DE equals CE. Then they have CD equals CE minus DE. They subtracted DE from both sides to get this, so that'd be subtraction property. Okay, so now we're going to transition into proofs. We're essentially doing the same skill in proofs, but there's a couple things that are important to know with proofs as well. We're not going to do every single one of these. We're going to skip around a little bit just to like make sure you have time to do your homework as well. So this first one right here is the one we're going to start with. Something that's really important is that the given is always this first statement. So given right here E is a midpoint of DE, and you see that plugged in right here. E is midpoint of, oh, sorry, it says DF. So we put given. And then the proof statement is always the last statement. So they plug that in for us, but sometimes you'll have to plug that in yourself. What I mean by plug in is there's either going to be an answer bank, which they show here, or there'll be like drop downs. So when you're doing proofs on testing, there's always an answer bank or drop downs. You're not having to come out with reasons out of thin air, and you're just like filling in blanks. So we're going to look at what it says. It says E is the midpoint of DF. Okay, cool. Then it says that DE is equal to EF. So just showing that on the picture. Okay, the reason why DE is equal to EF is because this is a midpoint. So the reason is definition of midpoint. And we can cross off given and definition of midpoint over here. This is like the answer bank. Then from here, I'm going to look at the next statement they gave me. It says DE plus DE equals DE plus EF. So what they did is they took this statement and they just added a DE to both sides. So they can do that because of addition property. Cross that out. Then the next statement, it says 2DE. So they just combined these like terms to get this, and then they left this as is. And I'm looking at my reasons: transitive, segment addition, or simplify. It's got to be simplify. So I'm going to put in simplify. Sometimes on the textbook questions, it calls this substitution for whatever reason. So just be aware of that, but simplify. And then for the next part, let's see, what did they do? DE plus EF. I'm looking for that here. It's got it there, but I'm not quite sure. But when I look up at the picture, DE plus EF equals DF. Okay, so definitely segment addition postulate. Segment addition postulate. And then for the last one, I have 2DE equals this, the same thing. So these are the same. So therefore I can put 2DE equal to DF. And that's what they did here. They used transitive property. Okay, and then we're going to go to the next page over here. We're going to do this top example right here. First things first is make sure that you label the given right here, and I'm going to label it because if anything I can get that right, like in terms of points, like partial credit kind of thing. The proof statement is the last statement there. It's already filled in for me. Also, I'm going to refer to the picture as to what the given is so I know what's going on. Let's see, it says KL is congruent to LN, and it also says that LM is congruent to LN. Cool. And it wants to prove that L is the midpoint. Okay, so we plugged in given, we can cross that out. Then it says pretty much the same thing as it says right here, except it uses equal signs instead of congruent statements. So that would be definition of congruence. Cross that out. Then it says KL equals LM. And so I'm looking at how they did that. Well, KL equals LN and LM equals LN. So therefore, KL can equal LM because of transitive property. And then since KL equals LM, then L can be the midpoint because of definition of midpoint. Okay, for the sake of our brains, we're not going to do 3 or 4 right now. If you want like more practice, you can do it on your own if you want. But just cross out 3 and 4. And then we're going to flip to the back page. And then on this page, like I said, we're going to save our brains a little bit so we have some brain energy for homework. And cross out 5 and 6, and we're just going to do the bottom one, number 7. So cross out 5 and 6, and then we're just going to do number 7 here. So crossed out 5 and 6. I'm just going to do number 7. I wanted to do number 7 specifically because notice how they have blanks on both sides. Sometimes that happens, and just like we did before, we're just looking at each piece and like plugging in a statement or reason. It says E is a midpoint of AC. Again, given is going to be that first statement. It doesn't give that second part there, but it has a second line for given, so we'll probably plug that in there, but I'm going to wait just in case. So it says E is a midpoint of AC. Cool. And then the next reason is definition of midpoint. Well, if E is a midpoint, then AE equals EC. So I'll plug that in. AE equals EC. And then for given, I'm going to take this and plug it in here. DE equals EC. Okay. And then I noticed that both AE and DE equal EC. So then I can put these equal to each other, which is what they did here. And that's transitive property. And then they have the reason definition of congruence, and that applies to when you have things that are equal, they're congruent. So I can say AE is congruent to DE. Cool. And then they changed the order here. They just switch it around. That was symmetric property. Okay, so what you're going to do now is homework 3-5 on Schoology. And then if you finish that, work on Alex for the week. And let me know if you have questions. You can go ahead and get a laptop. Yes, you can use the restroom, Lucas. Oh wait, Kristen was waiting before you.